op-ed tonight, the Wall Street Journal editorial board agrees and says that President Trump is right to turn back the caravan, partly because it's organized and not necessarily to the benefit of the migrants. Plus, there's this historical note, quote, not since the 1980 Mariel boatlift from Cuba has there been a similar attempt to overwhelm U.S. immigration law on the pretext of celebrating American freedom. Goes on to say Castro saw to it that criminals and mentally ill also climbed aboard those boats. No one doubted the Cuban hunger to escape, but the unintended consequences of the mayhem were costly. Tonight's Power Panel on immigration, Democratic strategist Dave Brown, Fox News contributor Lisa Booth, and Fox News contributor former acting ICE director Thomas Homan. Welcome to all of you.
Hi, Shannon.
All right, I want to start with something that Nancy Pelosi had to say in a joint statement with Chuck Schumer. She said this: the president is desperate to change the subject from health care to immigration because he knows that health care is the #1 issue Americans care about. Lisa, your response?
Well, I would say that Democrats are desperate to not talk about immigration. The Center for American Progress, a liberal think tank, put out a memo to Democrats in competitive races saying to avoid immigration, that sanctuary packs a punch, because Republicans have been on the offense on immigration, on issues like sanctuary cities, on issues like Democrats' calls to abolish ICE. And now what this does is putting immigration in the center, in the focus of the national debate, which is exactly what President Trump wants, is exactly what Republicans want. And Republicans and President Trump should be out there hammering it, because when you see visuals like these migrants breaking down the gates into Mexico, it just demonstrates and underscores President Trump's calls for increased border security. They couldn't ask for a better political gift, to be honest.
Well, okay, so this is something the president has tweeted now. He says every time you see a caravan or people illegally coming or attempting to come into our country illegally, think of and blame the Democrats for not giving us the votes to change our pathetic immigration laws. Remember the midterms, so unfair to those who come illegally. Dave, what do you make of this assertion that this is a huge political gift to the president at just the right time?
Shannon, I agree that it's a political gift to the president because this is a wedge issue that he's been very effective at using, dating all the way back to when he ran for president in 2016. But I disagree, very much disagree, with the fact that Democrats haven't been at the table and trying to work in good faith. I mean, look, I served in the Senate in 2013 as an aide. That year, we passed comprehensive bipartisan immigration reform. Democrats and Republicans came together. And so there is a proven path. There is a way to find a path forward for bipartisan immigration reform. And if anything, Shannon, I was really struck by the Fox and Friends panel of independent voters. I think it was this morning, to a person, I don't want to put words in their mouth, but to a person, they recognized the humanitarian crisis that's at the border, the plight of these people, but they also said they want Democrats and Republicans to come together. They're tired of the unnecessary partisanship. And so it's unfortunate that the president engages in the kind of rhetoric that he's engaging in at these rallies, where he essentially makes immigration reform a zero-sum game. I don't think that's best for the country.
You know, he put out, I think it was his 4 pillars that he wanted to see get done. He said if you can get these things done, including generous allocations for so-called dreamers who are already here in the country and others connected to them, that he would sign the bill. Republicans and Democrats, they couldn't get it together, so that didn't happen. No one knows better about that than former ICE director Thomas Homan. We're glad to have you with us tonight. I want to play something that President Trump said at his rally tonight, though, and get your reaction, Thomas.
Look, that is an assault on our country. That's an assault. And in that caravan, you have some very bad people. You have some very bad people. And we can't let that happen to our country.
Thomas, you would know more about this probably than the rest of us put together about exactly who is showing up at the border.
Well, look, we take custody of ICE took custody of everybody at Border Patrol arrest. If you look at who they've arrested in the last few years, between 18 and 20% have a criminal history. I mean, they've had criminal convictions. This isn't the first time they come to the United States. So there are a lot of criminals coming across the border. Now, I'm not saying every criminal, but as far as, what the president, the comments he made, look, we're a sovereign country. We have the right to protect our borders. And I can't, I've seen the covers also, and, sometimes it's sad to see what you see, but I can't blame these people that want to come to the United States. We're the greatest country on earth, but you can't be a part of the greatest country on earth and not respect its laws. You can't have it both ways, not under this president, and I agree with 100%. As far as the second speaker talking about your second guest talking about work on the Hill and that Democrats at the table, well, apparently he wasn't on the Hill last year and a half, because I was the ICE director last year and a half, and they weren't at the table. I mean, I met with a lot of lawmakers up there. We tried to shut down the loopholes. They refuse to shut down loopholes. When they talk about sanctuary cities, as your first guest says, and the abolishment of ICE, when you won't fix loopholes, you are enticing you are enticing others to make that dangerous journey. And it's just not people entering the country illegally. As you said, it's a national security issue, because while they're running families through one sector, they're running drugs and bad people through another sector, because Border Patrol's tied up. And you know, it's a fact. You know, you can like or not like the president, but he's 100% accurate on this issue.
I want to play something that one of the members of this caravan told us today. This is what he said about the strategy.
This is not going to be easy, but you know, it's a lot of people. I don't think he's going to be able to stop everybody.
Lisa, what about that?
Well, I think President Trump should try, because what we have here are people that are intentionally trying to exploit our laws, and they're doing that. You look at loopholes in the 2008 anti-human trafficking law that makes it very difficult to send Central American families or Central American individuals back. You also look at things like the Flores decree, which basically means that minors can't be detained for longer than 20 days, which makes it difficult when you have these individuals coming over as family units. So these Central American migrants know what they're doing, and they're intentionally trying to exploit our United States laws. And as I mentioned before, when you see the visual of them breaking through the gates into Mexico, this just underscores President Trump's calls for border security, and this is going to drive people to the polls, particularly considering the fact immigration is the #1 issue for Republicans.
Okay, I want to make sure we get Dave and Thomas in here for a final word. Dave, you, and then on to Thomas.
Look, this is a hard issue. No one who's worked on this issue would say it's an easy issue. But bottom line, and I think I'm probably a broken record on this with you, Shannon, this is an issue that requires good people to come together and compromise and be reasonable. And the problem, you know, one of your speakers talked about how Democrats weren't at the table in the House. That's not true. I disagree with that. But part of the challenge has been that Speaker Ryan and House Republican leadership have allowed members of their caucus to dictate terms.
Okay.
There's actually broad bipartisan consensus in this country for immigration reform, Shannon. Smart people need to come to the table. They need to compromise. We need to find a way forward.
All right, Thomas, final word to you.
Well, the guest is wrong again. I mean, I was the ICE director for a year and a half. I was on the Hill, and I met with a lot of lawmakers. Look, you can't have someone like Nancy Pelosi say ICE agents are out terrorizing innocent immigrant communities. You can't have people like Senator Gillibrand talk about abolishing ICE. You can't have, you know, all those leaders of the Democratic Party saying the things they say. It entices further illegal entry. And I'll add this. This just isn't about law enforcement. This isn't just about enforcing law. When you entice people to make that journey, people will die entering this country. Women will be raped. Children will die crossing the river. And we will bankroll the very criminal organizations that murdered Border Patrol agents and ICE agents. We're bankrolling criminal organizations by enticing illegal entry and having open borders. Abolishing ICE equals open borders. Not fixing the loopholes in the law is open borders. Every person on the Hill, whether you're Democrat or Republican, their #1 responsibility is to protect this country, and they're not doing it.
All right, Thomas, Lisa, and Dave, thank you all for weighing in.
Thanks, Shannon.